The second important aspect of the Greek tragedy was the concept of the unities. Aristotle mentioned two unities only, the unity of time and the unity of action. But the third one, the unity of place, was implied in the unity of time. He was of the opinion that the fable should be the imitation of one whole action. Its parts would be so arranged that, if any of them were taken away or changed, the effect would be different. It refers to the unity of action. He thought that the time should be confined to one revolution of the sun. That is, a tragedy should deal with events that take place in 24 hours. And lastly, he likes this action to happen in our compass. The third important requirement of the Greek tragedy was the plot. Aristotle regarded it as the soul of tragedy. He gave it greater importance than character. He held that plots could be simple or complex according to the actions represented by them. When the change in the fortunes of the hero resulted without peripety or discovery, the plot was regarded as simple. But when it involved either peripety or discovery or both, it became complex. The last of the requirements of a tragedy was the tragic hero, who was to be the intermediate kind of personage, a man not preeminently virtuous and just, whose misfortune, however, is brought upon him not by vice and depravity, but by some error of judgment, of the number of those in the enjoyment of great reputation and prosperity. And the men of note of similar families, the hero's fortunes must change from happiness to misery, a result not from depravity, but from a great error in judgment known as the tragic flaw. Thus the Greek tragedy tended to form a drama with the fortunes and misfortunes, and lastly the disasters befalling human beings of title, power, and position. The Roman tragedy, following the expansion of the Roman Republic into several Greek territories between 270 to 240 BC, Rome encountered Greek tragedy. From the later years of the Republic, and by means of the Roman Empire, theatre spread west across Europe, around the Mediterranean, and even reached England. While Greek tragedy continued to be performed throughout the Roman period, the year 240 BC marks the beginning of regular Roman drama. Livius Andronicus began to write Roman tragedies, thus creating some of the first important works of Roman literature. 5 years later, Aeneas Naevius also began to write tragedies. No complete early Roman tragedy survives, though it was highly regarded in its day. Historians know three other early tragic playwrights: Quintus Ennius, Marcus Maccabeus, and Lucius Accius. From the time of the Empire, the tragedies of two playwrights survive. One is an unknown author, while the other is the Stoic philosopher Seneca. 9 of Seneca's tragedies survive, all of which are adapted from Greek originals. His Phaedra, for example, was based on Euripides. Hippolytus. Historians do not know who wrote the only extant example of the tragedies based on Roman subjects. Octavia, but in former times it was mistakenly attributed to Seneca due to his appearance as a character in the tragedy. Seneca's tragedies revert those of all three of the Athenian tragic playwrights. His work has survived, probably meant to be recited at elite gatherings, that differ from the Greek versions in their long declamatory narrative accounts of action, their obtrusive moralizing, and their bombastic rhetoric. They dwell on detailed accounts of horrible deeds and contain long reflective soliloquies. Though the gods rarely appear in these plays, ghosts and witches abound. Senecan tragedies explore ideas of revenge, the occult, the supernatural, suicide, blood, and gore. The Renaissance scholar Julius Caesar Scaliger, who knew both Latin and Greek, preferred Seneca to Euripides.